Welcome to Ford High School Weekly. Another illustrious guest is here with us today. The man, the myth, the legend, Rod Thompson. Rod, how you been doing lately?
Man, been doing good, Dion. Just trying to stay COVID-free like everyone else, trying to navigate through, the things that we're going through as a society right now. So just trying to, man, get through it, trying to enjoy some sports and just hoping we continue to push along, that these young men and young women can continue to play the game that they love, at the same time being safe and being mindful of everybody throughout the whole process.
A lot of people know that me and you both do color for Cox YurView over here for the play-by-play as far as football. I was, asked a lot about how surprised I was that they made it through the pandemic, through the whole, scenario that everybody was facing this year, and finishing off the season, not only finishing off the regular season, but going throughout the playoffs and being crowned a champion at the end of it. How did you feel about how everybody handled that in Oklahoma, and how surprised were you that we got to finish?
Well, I think that's a great question, Dion, because I think that if you'd have said starting the season, even in the middle of the season, that we would crown a champion, I wouldn't think so. But I think a lot of credit goes to the school systems that done a tremendous job of protocol and staying on top of their young athletes. We kind of got going in the season, kind of got comfortable, but it was tough. With me being in the medical field, I kind of know and have a closer look at it than most. And so to be able to crown, champions in football and the biggest thing is, so many schools were out, not being able to practice because someone tested positive. To be able to get through that season, I think it's something that we'll all look back on, especially the champions. It's definitely a special year, but a lot of kudos to the school systems, the coaches, the administrators. They've done a good job trying to make sure that their student athletes were safe, and we were able to crown a champ.
Speaking of those champs, man, Jinx and Bixby both were able to take home the gold ball in the 6A division, Division 1 and Division 2. I mean, you're over there in that Tulsa area. What were some of the things that you saw from both of those teams that kind of impressed you, and kind of the reasons why they were able to, finish off number one?
Well, you start with Bixby, and you can't help but the job that Lauren Montgomery has done there. Tremendous job since he's been there. Of course, his tie to Jinx, being assistant there at Jinx, but the job that he's done there and the players that he has there and develop, and that tradition just continues to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I'll say this real quick. I don't know when it was, and talking about Bixby, but I can't remember the last time they had a national televised game. Just think about it. But again, Lauren Montgomery has done a good job there, and that comes with winning, and that comes with being able to win. And of course, they do a tremendous job against Booker T. Washington in that game, and Booker T. Washington has had the tradition, and so you have a marquee matchup. But kudos to Bixby and what they're doing there.
Speaking of Booker T. Washington, everybody knows here in Tulsa, when you're talking about basketball, Rod Thompson is the man that you need to talk to about the hoops, and he's got all the info and all the 411. So when we come back, we'll talk to Rod about basketball and the upcoming basketball season and who the guys that we need to look out for when we come right back. Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. We're talking to YurView's own Rod Thompson. Girls basketball. Let's start off right there. One of those few teams that everybody needs to know about, or few players that we need to be aware of. Let's start with the teams. All right, what teams are you looking forward to hitting the hardwood?
Well, let me say this, and this bodes well for boys and girls, Dion. An interesting year, just like with all the other sports, just with practice, not being able to practice, guys stepping up, trying to stay, injury free. When you talk about girls, you got to think about what Norman is doing right now on the girls' side. They have a tremendous program going there. Neil has done a great job. Union with Coach Joe Redden. Their team is playing extremely well. Their team definitely on this side of the state, have an outstanding move in has came in, has done a tremendous job from Colorado, I believe. They have an Old Dominion commit, and they're off to a very good start. Redmond, of course, is the head coach Booker T. Washington boys now there. And I think when you talk about Edmond North, what they're doing, also, I mean, you can't leave out Mustang. I mean, Mustang and Coach Bass, what she's doing there, and a host of teams. And then, most importantly, Deion Moore. I mean, with Aaliyah Moore, I mean, they are a team that is reckoned with. So when you talk about it, it's kind of spread out along the state. I think some things you look at, again, this bodes well for boys and girls, Deion, and we'll dig more into that, is the part of just dealing with the whole COVID issue. Teams not able to practice as much. Some of them are out. Players are out. So it's going to bode for a very interesting year. And I think we've seen that from the professional sports to college sports, right down to the high school. Hopefully we can be like football, that we continue to get better, improve, and make sure that we can crown a championship come March Madness time.
Yeah, that's definitely right. Speaking of Aaliyah Moore, she's kind of one of our favorites here on the Ford High School Weekly. We interviewed her earlier this summer as she was coming down and making her decision. Decided to go with Texas and go play for the Longhorns. But along with Aaliyah Moore, who are some of these other players on the girls' side that we should be aware of that should be doing some damage this season?
Well, got quite a few. I think you look over at Sapulpa, and you look at what they have with Poindexter. Tamara Poindexter. She's an outstanding player, and you got to talk about Staley Hurt. I mean, a young player, but I mean, when you talk about athlete extraordinaire, I mean, has done a tremendous job. I believe cross-country champ. I mean, of course, her parents were outstanding players. We can talk about Tony Hurt and Lila Oslowly. But when you look at those two and what Darlene Caleb is doing right there in Sapulpa, they're definitely outstanding players that you want to look at. I mean, and I think it's going to be something to look at, Deion, is who in the midst of everything that's going on, who kind of emerges or comes out as a player that is exciting, that maybe we didn't know about, in the beginning. As I said before, this Union has, when you talk about Pitts and what she's been able to do, and of course they have a move in. Her name escapes me right now, but she's done a tremendous job. So when you talk about Aaliyah Moore and you talk about the different players, our state right now is in good shape. I know a lot of people was not happy that Aaliyah, took her talents to Texas, but I mean, she's been good for a long time, but our state is in great shape when you talk about outstanding players that we have on the girls' side. And it'll be interesting to see which ones really step up and get it done, and hopefully, as we said, be able to win a gold ball come March.
All right, let's get to the X's and O's of this on the girls' side, and it's something that I'm going to cover with you a little bit on the boys' side as well. As far as girls' varsity basketball in the state of Oklahoma, is it going into the trend of everyday basketball that we're seeing on every level with NBA, college, and high school, especially boys, where the floor is being extended a little bit more, got more girls are shooting from the outside. A lot of these, taller athletes are coming outside just a little bit more and stretching the floor. Is it the same trend on girls varsity basketball as it is on the higher levels of things?
No doubt. It all starts from the top, Deion. So when you look and when you look at the models that everybody's going to look at, it starts from the top. So NBA, you take them inside, the game has changed. So, everybody is shooting threes, is running. And so the girls, when you look at the WNBA side and you look at Brianna Stewart and all the good players, it does trickle down. I think Aaliyah Moore is a good example. I mean, she's a girl that has tremendous size that 10 years ago would have just been an inside player. That now you see her, she's able to shoot the shot. But I think what makes her so good, Deion, and I think this is where a lot of young players, boys and girls, fall into, and that's a great question that you ask, is that the players that can continually show that they can do both. A lot of times you have girls and guys who are big, who are traditionally inside players, all they want to do is shoot threes. They're allergic to the post. They want nothing to do with the post, nothing to do with the box. And when they realize that this game is about matchups, mismatches, it's about matchups. And so I think when you have somebody like an Aaliyah Moore that is not opposed to going down in the post, banging around, using her size and strength, but also when she's a trail on the break, she's able to, feel right in and make a jump shot. And so I think that's what you see from both sides, because the top, a lot of times, and it comes down to college, and college comes down to high school. I tell young players all the time, we're always working for now, but looking towards the next. So high school players, they're trying to adjust their game and trying to get to the college level. College levels are trying to get to the NBA, WNBA. So those leagues sometimes predicate how you see the game changing. So that is a good point. You see a lot more spacing, a lot more ball movement, five guys shooting the basketball, five girls shooting the basketball. So that is a great point, Deanna, and that is what you're seeing, and that's what you continue to see. I talked about Tamara Poindexter. She's another one. She's 6'2", 6'3", also plays inside and can definitely shoot the shot from the outside, but doesn't just rely on the outside shot. So I think you're seeing a lot of spacing, getting to the basket, kicking out, making shots, and so that's why you kind of see the change of what we're talking about.
Yeah, you got to be able to do it all. And when we come back, though, we're going to decide to talk about the boys division. And there's a lot of players on that side of the court that can do it all as well. We'll be right back with Ford High School Weekly. Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. We're talking to YurView's own Rod Thompson. Let's go ahead and dive deep with the guys. How were the things looking over there with varsity high school basketball in the state of Oklahoma?
Well, state of Oklahoma is in a good shape, good place, because the 2021 class, as far as the boys, were always known as a class that was going to be pretty good. And you definitely see that. I mean, I think when you start, and if you start, let's look at Class 4A and what you have. When you talk about Heritage Hall, of course, with Trey Alexander, the Auburn commit and signee. You talk about him, the top three teams there. You talk about him. Then you talk about Kingfisher, where you have Bijan Cortez, an outstanding player, going to OU. And then you have Matthew Stone headed to North Texas. That's number 2. And then when you talk about number 3, you have to talk about Anthony Pritchard at Webster High School, who has done a tremendous job. I mean, he's headed to Tennessee Tech. I mean, he's averaging right around 23 points a game, an outstanding player. He's been MVP of a couple of tournaments already, and really being able to get it done. And Webster, I mean, playing shorthand. They have about 6 or 7 players. They won the Bishop Kelly tournament, beat some 6A teams. I think when you look at 4A, those 3 teams definitely lead the pack. I mean, and definitely, would be favorites there, because you have so much star power when you talk about that class. You move up to 5A, of course, Bobby Allison up to his old tricks again and winning. They're number 1 right now in that class, had big wins at the Jinx showcase, you could call it. Was going to be the Tournament of Champions, but ended up beating a very good Putnam City North team. And he has Ty Frierson, who's an outstanding player, Seth Pratt, a very good shooter for that team. So that team is number 1. The interesting thing in that class, I think you have to watch for Carl Albert. They're a very exciting team. I look forward to being able to watch them play. They're always good right there in that class. And Lawton is definitely a very good team in that class. And then when you move up to, you talk about 6A, I mean, some outstanding talent and teams all the way around, Dion. I mean, Putnam City West, of course, Lenny Burke, he has his team playing well. North, North is kind of stumbling right now, but they're a very good team playing well. And over here, you talk about Union and Jinx has stumbled a little bit. And I think that when you look at it, Dion, again, you see some of these teams that's kind of been hot and cold. I think it is a direct result, because I think if you look at it, most teams have had to set out a couple of weeks, miss some games, haven't had consistently practicing. And so when you start talking about looking at these games, that's what makes it so unique. You have teams right now still trying to find games. So we all know the more games you have, usually the more experience you have, usually the more camaraderie you have on the court. People know who does what. And so the coaches are having a tough time trying to find their way. But I think that, hopefully we can get through it. Another team real quick, and I know you got some more questions for me, Union. Union is very good. And when you look at this team, you have to talk about Trent Pierce, an outstanding sophomore, Division I recruit, has been able to, make some outstanding plays. He's going to be a great player for them. And also AJ Reed also gets it done for them. Broken Arrow, they had a big win last night over Booker T. Washington. Tyler Pender is an outstanding player for them. So, man, we have so many players, and we'll have to do it again, Dion, that we can break down and talk about in these classes. And, of course, when you talk about 6A, you have to look at the top. I mean, the job Shane Coward does at Edmond Memorial with Sean Padula, you know, they're definitely the favorite right now. I mean, Sean Padula headed to Virginia Tech. He's an outstanding player in that Class 6A class, you know. And we talk about Putnam City North with Jeremiah Johnson. He's very good. If you want to go a little bit and go a little bit smaller and some younger players you want to look at that's very good, you talk about over at Victory Christian. They had a tough game, won last night against Holland Hall. You talk about them, and when you talk about Chris Mason and Cedric Hardrick, able to get it done, outstanding players that can also play. Another outstanding freshman. You got to go to Bartlesville. You know, when you talk about David Castillo, very good player. So there's so many players that we could talk about. I know I missed some, so forgive me a little bit, and we'll talk more about it. But Dion, I think it's a great time, and I would tell fans, get out, be able to see these young people play, boys and girls. It's a very good year here in the state. It's some exciting basketball going on, some great coaches, and hopefully we can get on and talk more about some of these young people, boys and girls who are doing a tremendous job.
Oh, we do. We will. Most definitely will do that. The question I want to ask you, and something that me and you have talked about before, is because of the fact that AAU basketball wasn't as, prevalent and didn't take place as often, or, wasn't as visible this year, what can we expect from these players because of the layoff and because there wasn't eyes on them and attention on them from that aspect of basketball, which is a big aspect of basketball in these day and age?
Well, it makes a big difference because, again, you're getting games and you're getting reps, and you're not able to do that. And I think it is a direct result of what you're seeing now. Some guys are still trying to, get back to playing. I mean, you take in the summer, some of these guys will play 40 or 50 games. You have no choice but to get better. And Dion, to think about the effect of it, Jinx has been kind of up and down, and I know I can say this because it's been out in the public in the newspaper. I mean, Coach Clay Martin, he just got home from the hospital dealing with COVID. His team is trying to figure out without a head coach being there. So you see the effects of it, and that's why I try to tell parents, be patient. Be patient with these young people. One team I forgot to mention, Dion, that I would circle and definitely look at is Bixby. The Bixby Sparks right now. Got to win, this past week. They're 6-0 for like the first time. I believe they won 6 games last year. Coach Sam Fairchild is doing a tremendous job with this team, and they have some exciting players. When you talk about Parker Frederickson, I mean, he's a sophomore, can really shoot the ball, can really play. He's having an outstanding year, I believe, averaging about 26 points a game, when you talk about him. And then you talk about Xavier Glenn. He's one of the most underrated. Coach Fairchild said this, one of the most underrated guys in Class 6A. Definitely you got to have guard play. When you look at Xavier Glenn and Parker Frederickson, the two guys that are definitely helping with their success right now, watch this Bixby team and see how they grow and progress and see where they are, come tournament time. So that's a team that I would definitely circle, that I would look at, Dion, when you talk about a team you want to see and see how they go. But definitely you see the effects of COVID and what it's been doing to a lot of these young men and women and really kind of slowing up their progress.
Well, like we said earlier, winning is contagious, and it looks like that contagious is starting to catch on at Bixby and go over to the basketball side of things as well. But when we come back, we'll talk about something that Rod just mentioned, the COVID and the pandemic, and dealing with that during basketball season, because we got to remember last year, this is when it snuck up on us and it canceled that gold ball championship that some of these players were looking forward to playing in. When we come back, we'll talk about that with Rod Thompson. Welcome back to Ford High School Weekly. We're talking with my main man, Rod Thompson. Rod, we just talked about the boys basketball. Now the situation that's at hand that everybody's, worried about and concerned about with these upcoming basketball season. It's not like football. Okay. Football, you're outdoors. I mean, the wind's blowing. You can social distance a little bit more, but on a basketball court, we're indoors and everything is a little closer. Players are a little closer together. How do you think everything's gonna, pan out in your opinion?
Well, definitely my opinion. I think we still haven't got past it. I think we're coming up on a couple of weeks that a lot of doctors tell me that, may be a tough time coming. But I just think we have to be safe. I mean, I think that if we want, we know, Deion, these young people and these coaches and administrators and referees, they do a tremendous job of helping these young people. And I just think that if we want to see these young people be able to go and play, we have to be safe.
You're definitely right about that. One of the questions that I did want to ask you, though, as far as all those things that you just listed off, what do you think will be the biggest difference from a normal basketball season and this season? Maybe some of the biggest adversities that these teams will face because of this virus.
I think it's going to be maybe teams that you expected to win in a landslide, or that may be favored on paper, may not be able to get it done because of what we're talking about. You lose a key player, you get a key player out. As I said before, you get in a situation where you have a coach like Clay Martin who leads his team, who is a tremendous coach, with him being out. Something like that happening along this process, along, getting time for playoff time, that's gonna be the biggest difference. I mean, you think about it last year, it was a situation where it was a total shutdown. So it wasn't teams playing, this team can't play, everybody shut down. This year, it may tend towards a team being shut down. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I think that when you look at 2020, just like you look at 2021, I think you're going to have to put a star by both of those years when it comes to sports, because it is so different. We're living in a different time. But hopefully, and sooner rather than later, that we can look back and say, hey, like my grandmother used to sing, how we got over, how we made it, So I think those are the biggest difference that we look at, Deion.
For more highlights and interviews, go to YurView.com/OK. And remember, only the best in Oklahoma make it to Ford High School Weekly. So until next time, thank you for watching. I'm Deion Amade.